Peace. Good morning. Good morning. Sunday, June the 7th. Halfway through this darn year already. I can't believe it. Hope everybody's doing all right. And I want to jump and speak my thoughts on this Carmelo Anthony Austin Metcalf situation. Before I begin, a lot of people have done some real extensive breakdowns. And of course, with the American context, as far as, race and demographic and the endless storylines we have about race, I want to try to look at this objectively. Certain people have a talent for reading faces, right? And I've been able to, because you got to remember, this happened April 2nd, which just happened to be my deceased grandfather's birthday. This happened over a year ago, right? So I remember when it first happened, you had tons of, all these people saying things that they didn't know. And you could tell in their content that they didn't know. There's nothing against their arrangement and, the effects and the actual quality of the content. But what they were talking about was so oblique. It was so, incongruent and personal. It had nothing to do with what we were being shown or what we were being led to believe. And, harness at that time is real information. The way I'm going to address this is with central questions. Because it's real easy to say, you know what I'm saying, that fill in the blank, bully or provocateur, shit starter, what have you, came at me and I defended myself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? I think there's something very wrong with this Billy Badass attitude that certain Americans seem to have sometimes when it comes to what I want. And you see this if you've been an educator, a teacher, a counselor in any type of diverse setting. You've seen this pattern, right? It usually comes to a result that happens, and this certain type of American don't like it, and they will either act out or they will overextend what they call authority to get what they want. Doesn't make it right, but this is a real type of mental formula that some people have. And I'm not going to get into all these little, loose ends about who was there, even though there has been new information come out, and the people who are covering that, thank you, and I honor what you're doing. But just to keep my sanity and just stay on track of what my questions are, that's how I want to address it. All right. My first question is, anybody who's played sports, especially sports that involve groups, so basketball, yeah, it's a team, but it doesn't have, it's like a traveling football team would anyway. All right. So track is probably the deepest, for lack of a better word, sport there is, as far as participants, different athletes, their respective coaches, their subs, their backups. And you have people that run more than one event. So you have a damn near colony of students and adults, which, again, my first question, where was the personnel and the coaches? Before we even get to security or, a more aggressive type of boundary setter, where was the damn security and the coaches or the adult that has a walkie-talkie or signals something? Or I'm just seeing so many images in my head of situations that get like that, right? You got, I don't give a damn what color you are, you got people approaching the end of their adolescence, or however you want to scale that, end of teenagers' years, right? They're pretty much doing things that most adults do. We don't need to review that. But at the same time, they're green as hell to adult sentiment, the adult world. the principles and guidelines that govern adult life, right? Because school is designed to prepare you for that. You know what I'm saying? So and then when you're an athlete or you're some symbol of influence, you indulge in those things more simply because of your popularity. It's real simple to understand. And the point I'm getting at is when you're at these events, it could be football, it could be track, soccer, it could be lacrosse, there's always going to be an element of tension. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't warrant somebody to go and violate somebody else's personal space and make contact. All right? Never that. But what I'm saying is let's just keep it real, the testosterone, the attitude, the arrogance. We can say these things are evil and bad and but they're just a real part of life. But when you start getting into seeking problems out, i.e. bullying, targeting people, and then like I just said, violating personal space, now you're creating more problems, as we evidently see. So that's my first question. Where was the coaching staff and the personnel? And some people will go super into the stratosphere and ionosphere with their thoughts about certain types of mind control and all this type of shit. And who knows, they could be right. But I'm just dealing on the practical level. Where was the coaching staff, right? Secondly, most football players gotta be careful with this. Everybody's different. But most football players are conscious of their reputation and stuff, right? Do they still bend the rules? I'm sure they do. But we're talking about high school football. And I won't say any names as far as the creators, but I remember that day it happened. I remember that week there was all these different stories, about the GoFundMe, the this, the that, the Metcalf boys were racist and all of this type of stuff. Again, it's just kind of fluff information, right? And I think what they used to say they were racist was they showed them in some hunting outfits, which I promise you go throughout the American South, in every state, you'll find a lot of brothers and colleagues and friends in this type of pose. You could pick on them and say, oh, that's some white man stuff, holding up a deer head or holding up a firearm, conquering nature. We get that, but that's not, you can't use that to say, alright, he's, 17 from Texas, he must have felt this type of way about people. Because to be honest with you, you don't know what was put in his head either. And to swing back to my original question, I can't believe I just said that in relation to what I'm about to say. It's funny how shit works. But I remember that week, this is 2025. A little picture, right, with the gun and, these monkeys better not show up and all this and that. This is my second question. Why would a student athlete, I'm not defending him, I'm just asking, why would a student athlete put 2 firearms for billions of people to see forevermore in cyberspace, and he's about to get a doggone full ride to probably anywhere he wants, as far as just grades and connections and you know how that pipeline goes, man. Hell, if you come from Texas and play football, that's just like coming out of a state like Indiana or North Carolina or Florida for basketball. You know what I'm saying? It's just these different, like I said, pipelines or portals to the next level. You understand what I'm saying? Why would you put that online? Because I remember somebody said that you know that can't be real because you didn't see. And again, God rest the dead, but you didn't see Austin himself have like 2 pistols, like the Hitman or Max Payne or some shit, and sit up there and say, "Yeah, I can't wait till these," you know, and all these slurs and stuff. You didn't see that. You seen a gun on the seat of a truck, and somebody, you know what I'm saying, 302 million fucking options could have said. So that was my second question. Why would somebody put themselves in that? Because the first thing, especially these days, the first thing colleges are going to do once they're finished glazing this dude and oh my gosh, and you know, we'd love to have you. You know, once they finish giving him that civil respect, they're going to do their due diligence and they're going to check, right? And, you know, practically a man, so they're not going to check his phone. They're not going to check, you know, personal stuff. They're going to look on the World Wide Web. And I know I sound like a old fuddy-duddy. I'm just saying, like, think about how stupid you would have to be to potentially go to a, you know, $1 million opportunity one day. And you sitting up there with some racist stuff with guns. I think they planted that on him. I really do. I think, regardless of what he did to get his time cut short, I hate that happened. I really do. But I think that was to pepper his legacy with a certain thing, right? And then you have to apply the same to Mr. Anthony. Of people with all these pictures, and you know, he's doing all this stuff, and you know, trying to erect this image of a gangster, a troublemaker, right? And then you throw in the hair, you throw in all these dead horse beating, I know it's not a term, but just tired ass stereotypes, right? Nappy hair, did this, did that, did this, did that. You know what I'm saying? And you automatically think, oh, well, you know, he must have been just looking for an issue. You know what I'm saying? It's the whole story to me. So it's, so again, this is just 2 central questions. All right? I've heard people from both sides of the phenotype aisle. You know, it's so nuanced. Some people are like, hell yeah, he should have did it, as we know. Some people are like, I mean, I feel you in here, but Negro, you fucked up. Then you got people who, you know, he was a troublemaker and he was just out trying to get some money to buy him some Newports or some dumb shit like that. You understand? So it's like whatever narrative is in your heart, that's what narrative you're going to unfold. And you're going to think the shit is dragon fire because you can't understand that you really don't know a lot about this incident. All you know is that there were 2 different types of Americans involved. It was at a track. It was in a state with a very intense, racially charged reputation. And you were dealing with, from what I understand, 2 prestigious student athletes. You see what I'm saying? But see, when you deal with all of this emotionalism and what we need to do, and, you know, it's like the perfect storm, man. And the thing about media perfect storms is that they always wrench at people's emotions. Always. Because technically we're talking about 2 children. You know what I'm saying? So again, this is just more so a review. I don't know what's going to happen, clearly. I don't think that it's just going to be just a clean walk, though. You know? I think when we're in... Because, let me tell y'all something real quick. Trauma is not just... I mean, I don't even want to go there, right? It's Sunday morning, but trauma doesn't have a uniform. Heavy, I know. There's people right now who cannot be in groups because they were bullied so bad when they were children. You know, there's people who, you know, they got swirlies in middle or high school, or, you know, they got their lunch money. Like, their nervous system was jolted at such a young age for no reason. And these phobias and insecurities have become like appendages to them, you know? And again, man, if people are presenting a physical threat to you and you're doing what you're supposed to do as far as grades, as far as, you know, job, learn how money works, like I said at the beginning, you're learning these guidelines, and say you get surrounded by 4 people and it's nothing but hostility, at the end of the day, man, that's where that animalistic side comes out. And when I say football players and reputation and all this, a lot of football players don't back down from stuff. You know, it's not always the smartest move, but if your whole, I'll just say hobby and passion is based in attacking people, see, we don't think about it like that. And it's nothing against football, it's just the entire rhythm of the game is based on F him up, hit him, get him, sack him, intercept him, fumble. You know, it's all based on contact. It's based on problems. You know what I mean? But we don't think about it like that because it's our team. But the whole sport itself is based on, I'm going to check you. You feel me? It's just organized into offense and defense. Special teams. So they're not going to back down. But if you have a high GPA, chances are you're not no fool. I don't care what you look like. And of course, we know there's, you know, the school and people getting past and all that. What I'm saying is, athletes have a degree of intelligence that often goes misjudged or underrepresented, right? Playing football at a high school level, sure, if you're athletic, it can be fun, it may even be easy, but it still requires a lot of different dynamics in your brain. So what I'm saying is, both these boys, one still with us, the one that is no longer here, I just think they're being painted in a certain way, and it's just like a bunch of, well, he was this, well, he was this. And bully, again, man, without the facts, it's like they know without the facts, you're just going to sound like you're either team this or team that. You're either for them or against them. You're either cool or you're It's not that simple, you know? So again, my primary 2 questions were, where were the adults? You haven't heard one other than, you know, Mr. M and, you know, the camps involved. I'm talking about school employees, even a tutor, anybody out there in proximity, which means you had a bunch of 16 and 18-year-olds, 16 through 18, I should have said, in an environment where, you know, there could have been anything going on in that tent. I'm just saying, that's why most people, especially in high school, they're not supervising to be an a-hole. They're just doing there to make sure everything stays straight. You know, it's just like an evolved form of what you do in any other school. So where was the athletic personnel and staff to structure that event? Tents full of all kinds of different types of people, and and there's no supervision at all. That's a really pertinent question. Alright? And whether they were, you know, doing whatever they were doing behind the bleachers or whatever, somebody dropped the ball there. It's quite clear. And then my second question regarding this whole new, explosive news on Austin and that picture had been out. That shit had been out like the week that it happened. Because I remember seeing it and I remember being like, what the hell is this boy thinking? You know what I mean? It would have been different if he was like, you know, his dad was a somebody in a certain organization and he had this reputation and, when you see him, you better run, you know, type shit. But there's a difference between that and you know, somebody walking through the hallway with their shirt sleeves rolled up saying, you know, you got my science paper, that type of thing, you know. Both are bullying, or both characters could be bullies, but you're dealing more with another type of term in that first example, right? It could have been anybody in that culture did it. And I think, in my heart, something tells me somebody put that on his page to sensationalize the story. And it's effed up, but I think that's what happened. Because even if you felt that way about people, you wouldn't compromise potentially your whole doggone future to, you know what I'm saying? It's trippy. It's trippy. It's real trippy. Because it's like whoever did that knew, oh, that's dark, man. I don't want to go there. But you gotta ask questions before we jump into, you know, race WWE and start, you know, going back and forth about what you would have did. Don't matter what you would have did. We gotta ask questions about the scene that's square before our eyes.